Alright, here's a real quick and dirty intro to the new vehicle to the channel. This is the 98 GMC C1500. This was given to me by my grandfather, who passed recently. It's pretty rusty. It's probably never going to be a super nice truck, but it'll be a good user. I recently acquired some of the stock wheels for it and put new tires on it. And before I put too many miles on these things, it's got a very floaty front end on it, and so I've got pitman arm, idler arm, tie rod ends, and then at some point I do have new shocks and upper and lower control arms, but for now I just really want to concentrate on the steering and get that tightened back up, so that's what I'm going to do right now. Alright, so let's see just exactly how sloppy this is here. So I've got everything jacked up, and I'm just going to kind of wiggle these front wheels and see. Oh, wow. Yeah, so there you go. Okay, interesting. Well, yeah, so this needs done pretty badly. So yeah, I guess I'm just going to dive right in and take off this entire thing. So, unfortunately, I watched a few videos on this. Yeah, it looks like this is in the way from just taking the center link completely out. But I think what I need to do, so I think if I just remove this idler arm bracket completely, then that'll allow the center link to come out. And then this pitman arm, when I take that off, I'm going to try to use a 2-jaw puller, maybe. I know they make tools specifically for this, but I'm going to try a 2-jaw puller on it. If that doesn't work, I'll go and do the rent-a-tool thing from AutoZone and do the right thing. But, alright, I guess I'll just start removing components. So. Alright, this actually looks like it might be kind of easy on this truck. So I'm going to take off the outer tie rod ends from the knuckles, and then this pitman arm. Remove that idler arm bracket from the frame, and then that other outer tie rod end on that side, and this whole thing should come out. And so on a lot of the ones that I saw online on YouTube and things like that, seemed like there was always some kind of bar or some kind of thing in the way, but it looks like on this one that pitman arm is just going to drop straight down. I don't see anything in the way on that pitman or the idler arm bracket or anything, so I'm just going to take this whole thing out in one big unit. So 18mm for these outer tie rod end nuts. This is a 32mm. It fits pretty tight. I'm hoping that's just because of the rust. So let's give it a whack or two. Let's give ourselves a rust shower here. It's gonna be fun getting that back out of the socket. If that'll help or not, but what does it cost me? I don't know if that's doing anything. Actually, I do know if it's doing anything. I know that it's not doing anything. This puller is a little bit weak. Let's just leave it there with some tension on it. Oh good, I just messed up the threads on that. That's just built-in thread locker. So, alright, so what I've done here is I've lifted this seal up with a screwdriver just to expose the top of that, doused it again, and then I looked around and I found a much beefier 2-jaw puller. So let's see if this one has any better success. So it has 2 positions that you can put these into, and I think when they're so far outboard, that's not letting it work. So, okay, this looks a little bit more promising. So it's got these things at the bottom here that won't even let it spread apart, and so I don't know. Let's give that a whirl. I'm basically just watching this rubber seal up here and trying to keep the flames off of it. I don't know if I'm even getting this thing very hot. This is looking like a fail for now. Okay, let's try this monster of a puller that I just found around here. Make it work. Hopefully it'll keep everything more square too. Alright, I've got it under a lot of tension, and I've got this thing, which is supposed to be some kind of a sheet metal cutter, but I think it might work as an air hammer. I don't know, I guess I could try cutting the tip off, but I don't want to. Maybe I'll use that as a sheet metal cutter in the future, but I don't know. I'm replacing the pitman arm anyway, so if I mess it up, I don't think that'll matter. Eric O did it with an air hammer, so. All of a sudden this is easier to turn. That seems weird. Okay, that's it. Oh man, my neck is so sore. Alright, for this idler arm bracket here, it looks like this. So there's 3 bolts that go through this way. And so the bolts are actually inside the frame, and there's 3 holes that correspond with these nuts here on the other side of the frame. So just get an extension and a ratchet or a gun and go through that, hold this side of the wrench, and yeah, take those 3 out. And then what I'm going to attempt to do is leave them in and put nuts on them to keep them captured where they're at so they don't fall inside the frame, which it wouldn't be the end of the world. I do have a magnet on a stick, but it'll be a lot easier if that doesn't happen, which means it probably will happen. So I think I'm going to just stick magnet these things out of there so this thing can just drop out from under, or not under, but so it can drop out from behind the radiator hose, I guess. Okay. So that's the idler arm. So the only thing that's left is to disconnect the tie rod end, the outer tie rod ends from the knuckles, and this whole assembly should come out of here. Alright, I'm just trying to get all this to clear this stupid thing in the middle. I'm sure there's a good reason for it, but I'm a whiner, so you know. Come on, baby, get out of there. Alright. So, here's the entire assembly next to the new parts that we're going to be replacing. So I've got all Moog parts here, inner and outer tie rods, the adjusters, idler arm bracket and idler arm, new pitman arm, which is probably the biggest reason we had such floaty steering, and then inner and outer tie rod ends and adjusters on the other side. Now you can tell which ones are the inners and the outers because the inners have the grease fitting in the end so that you can have access to it, whereas the outers have the grease fitting on that right there in the center of that thing. So I think this is pretty straightforward. So on this you can see on the splines there's I don't know how to describe it really. Those 4 splines that are basically not there, that are wider. So this can go on one of 4 ways. And obviously, since we're doing this on the vehicle, we will align it the way that it came off. That should be pretty easy. Only one way that can go on. Look at what the air chisel did to it. These tie rod ends, if I'm not mistaken, it should be, like I should be able to off the vehicle, basically right here on the bench, assemble the 2 tie rod ends and the adjuster and basically match the length of this, and that should get me darn near perfect, if not very close on the alignment. And then I'll go ahead and put the strings on it just to see where it's at, but I am going to take it to get an alignment done regardless. This should be pretty straightforward. I think literally all this, there's no clocking of this. You just assemble this on the taper and bolt it to the body, and I'll have to look up all the torque specs still, but and then the only thing other than that is this center link will get reused. So it'll get the inner tie rods bolted to it on either end, and the idler arm and the pitman arm bolted to it to spec or whatever. So I've still got to separate all that stuff. Probably would have been smarter to use a pickle fork to separate all that while it was still on the truck, but you know, I'll just have to deal with that. So that's what you're looking at on all the parts. Oh, you know what? Quick side note, I think this is actually an SKF idler arm. Not that that matters, but everything else should be Moog on this thing. Yeah, that's a Moog pitman arm there. So yeah, I guess I'll go ahead and get these things assembled and clocked. That's the other thing too, is that this one needs to be facing that direction and that one needs to be 90 degrees up, and so I'll do that right here on the bench. And then I think I saw someone say that you should try to adjust these clamps so that the split in them is in the same spot as the sleeve, if that makes sense. So they're the exact opposite right now, but yeah. So yeah, I'll do all that then and see if we can get this whole thing reassembled in there today. Alright, so now I should probably start trying to disconnect all this stuff from this center link and get all the new stuff transferred over to it. Normally I would love to clean this thing up, sandblast it, and paint it, but I don't have time. I gotta get this thing done like today. So it is what it is. The truck is a rusty hunk of crap anyway, so you know, who cares if that's rusty? Looks like 18 for those. I don't know for that yet. Nice round number, 22 millimeter. That could fit a little tighter. I doubt it's going to be 21. Oh, it's 21. Okay. So 18 for these and 21 for that. See how this goes. Okay, I'm at least going to wipe this thing down. I'm done cleaning this up. This is a pain in the ass.